Hello and welcome to this special meeting of the Amherst Conservation Commission on July 30th, 2025. The time is 7:03. So this special meeting is being held to specifically address the topic of hunting on conservation lands, specifically the document put forth by the Land Use Subcommittee. So it was determined previously by the commission that the topic warranted additional discussion. So now we are convening to review and discuss the recommendations put forth by the Land Use Subcommittee, suggesting alternatives to the current policy. So purview here is town conservation lands, excluding DPW lands and other town lands. So conservation lands only. So before we go into that, I'm going to first acknowledge some comments regarding the open meeting law. I've had conversations with town staff and initiated some guidance and discussions about that, and some further guidance will be sought from the AG. So this topic was not posted on our public agenda, and we will not discuss it tonight. We'll just need more information from the town and AG before we can have a productive conversation. So no further comments about this tonight, and we'll move it to a future agenda where it can be posted in a timely manner. So focusing tonight on the subcommittee's proposal on hunting, and our format's going to be word from Alex Hoare, the Land Use Subcommittee Chair, on the proposal. Andre has requested time in the agenda for a 20 to 30-minute presentation. We'll go to public comment, then commissioner discussion, and we will end no later than 9, taking stock at some point about what we'll need for any kind of next steps towards moving towards vote. So I will hand it over now to Alex, Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Erin if she would bring up a PowerPoint that I sent to her. And I have it here, but I am not keen on sharing. It would be a lot easier if she did it. And this is I'll just, I don't think I can activate the slides, but if you want to go into Power presentation mode, that'd be great. So I think I have, I didn't count the slides. I think there's 10 or 12. So we produced a document, and I want to just give an overview of that document, and it'll take, I don't know how long it'll take me. I've learned it as I made this PowerPoint, but didn't time myself, so I'll try to be brief. Erin, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So I want to begin.
Erin, can you put it in presenter mode? You're in presentation mode. You're in presenter mode right now. You may have to, if you go to.
I think the command is presentation, or slideshow, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Erin,
usually the
click
one
on where you
I
were.
think it's the one to the right of where you are, Erin.
Hold on, Erin.
This is.
Click on that one.
Yeah, that's what I just did. Yep.
Go up to the top where it says display settings. Do you have 2 monitors?
I do.
Swap presenter view and slide view.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I'm glad I'm not doing this.
I do a lot of PowerPoints.
Okay. So I will give the slides and try to I am assuming that commissioners have read the document we're talking about, so I'm not going to try and review all of it. I will, so what I want to start by just with this graph of Amherst population growth from 1940 to 1920. So it was a little bit of a town back in 1940. The university grew a great deal, and with that, its population growth, it grew. Its housing density grew, and that's a whole wetlands issue I'm not going to go into. But the important thing here is that when we get to number of trails and acres and all that kind of stuff, we have had increasing use of conservation land pretty steadily from the 1960s up to now, and it continues to increase. So we don't have trail monitors on our trails to know how much use we have. And this slide is the best representation I can give you of increasing use of by its citizens and others who come to Amherst of our trails and our conservation land. We are well known for that land. Next, please. So these, as I said, these numbers are from memory and they may be not quite right, but they give you an idea. So the Conservation Department maintains about 140 miles of trails. They provide parking and access to those trails. There's about 3,200, I think that number's low, acres of conservation land that the department has consciously put together over years. The Department of Public Works, which we're not going to talk about tonight, but they have also a lot of land. They have about 3,000 acres of water supply land, which is open to hunting. And it does not provide parking consciously, and it does not, as a mission, maintain trails. So the DPW is not as forward as the Conservation Department in inviting use. Therefore, conservation land has a denser use than DPW land. Next. By the way, if folks have questions or I'm not clear about something, just raise your hand, please. So on December 3, 2024, the subcommittee presented all the rules and regulations that it had revised for use of conservation land to the commission. And the commission approved them all except for hunting. And those rules included agriculture, forestry, camping, bicycling, horses, you name it, every use on conservation land. We spent over a year going through it. And I think personally, before that committee was set up, I spent 2 years. So a lot of time was spent going through it. And we took care with every single one. And as we were done with them, we brought them to the commission for approval. And we always gave about 2 weeks notice, or we tried to give 2 weeks notice for the commission to read over every rule we were bringing to them. So then it came for a vote. They had had opportunity to comment, raise questions, and get them resolved. And that, we were really dedicated to that from the September through the end of our commission, through the end of our charter. Thank you. Next. So what's the current status of hunting? State law says that unless prohibited, hunting is allowed in Massachusetts according to seasons and regulations set by Mass Wildlife. That means that hunting can occur on all public and private land during periods set by Mass Wildlife, the state agency with jurisdiction in compliance with its published regulations. And what I didn't add again is unless prohibited. Next. Yeah, this one's a little out of order, but I'll talk about it anyway. So prohibition. We usually think that of posting no trespassing or no hunting signs, but the state legislature decided to prohibit the discharge of firearms, the carrying of loaded weapons within 500 feet of any occupied structure. And that was Mass General Law, Chapter 269, Section 12E. They called it a public safety law. And the map right here is of Simmons Farm, and you can see the buffer in orange, where it sticks out 500 feet from every occupied dwelling or structure. That means it can be a hay barn. It doesn't mean somebody lives there. It can be a tractor shed. It could be a wood shed. It could be a horse barn. The boundary of these 100-foot buffers get convoluted as the 100-foot buffer reaches out from every occupied structure. So there is a very difficult outline to follow. And if you're in the woods, unless you're really dedicated with a GPS on your phone and strictly paying attention, you would have a very difficult time knowing if you're crossing over a boundary of this public safety buffer. And when the legislature adopted this buffer, I didn't look at the legislative history, but I doubt that they went to the effort of finding out how many accidents there were within 500 feet of an occupied structure due to discharge of a firearm or an arrow. They simply acted in the public interest to create what they called a public safety buffer. And they certainly didn't go into what's the effect of not allowing the discharge of a firearm and therefore hunting in those buffers. They did not go into, I'm sure, what the effect is on forests, ticks, automobile accidents, and all that kind of stuff. So we followed the state's lead, and we took this 500-foot buffer, and I don't have the graph of it because I do, but I didn't put it in the slideshow. But we took the 500-foot buffer just for kicks and laid it on top of every trail. And to see, well, how much is left? And frankly, there wasn't much left. So then that was a quandary, and I'll just leave it there. But this buffer is really important because from an administrative standpoint, if you have hunting going on in Simmons Farm, you have a heck of a law enforcement problem trying to figure out if somebody's in the buffer and therefore shouldn't be hunting, shouldn't be carrying a loaded firearm, shouldn't be discharging. Yeah, go ahead, Andre.
Could you explain what the difficulty is?
Yeah, I just tried to do that. The buffers are convoluted. Every single structure has a different 500-foot buffer. It's not a straight line, and they're not marked in the woods. That's my answer.
Okay,
Next.
let's just focus on the presentation and we'll get into questions and discussion later. Alex, how much more time how many more slides, just so I have a sense of
Till I get
our
done.
outlook? Can you just give me an estimate?
I don't know how many slides there are. I'm rolling along.
All right, please continue.
Yeah, can you advance the slide, please, Aaron? Okay. No, did you go to 2? So the rule in effect now is that hunting and fishing is permitted where not posted. And that's what it says in the rules codified for conservation land, if not posted. Next. The Amherst website at the bottom says all other town conservation land areas or conservation areas is closed to hunting. And at the top, it says hunting is only permitted in the following, and it names them. And it actually, the link to each map, this is on the town website. So this is the town's way of saying where hunting has been allowed and where it's not. And there was great discussion in the subcommittee about the administrative burden of posting. So we have a little bit of a conflict or question about whether or not the town has to post or whether it can simply put something on its website, and that's a discussion for the commission. Next, please. This is a map of the land that DPW manages, and I said we're not going to talk much, but it's just a map to show how concentrated it is, essentially where it is. There's also land in Amherst, which is in Belchertown, which is not shown, but there's a big blocks of Coles land, DPW land, which is all open to hunting. Next, please. So the decision choices for the commission are pretty simple. And it says in the document that the subcommittee doesn't have a position pro or con hunting. And I think these alternatives show that. The first choice is that the commission could make is to continue hunting of all 23 species that the state allows, plus migratory birds, on designated conservation land. That would be what I call status quo. The next is to continue to allow hunting of deer, turkey, pheasant, grouse, and rabbit, but not the other 18 species or migratory birds, and they include English sparrows, starlings, skunks, raccoons, etc. The third choice is to not continue hunting at all on designated lands. So there's really only 3 choices, 2 of which allow hunting. Next. Other decision choices, which I called secondary, and that is to post trails informing public that hunting is or is not allowed. That doesn't occur now. And post trails advising users that they and their pets should wear hunter orange during hunting season. The state recommends it. And I spent a lot of time looking at what Mass Wildlife has to offer on that. And the third, it's not, the sixth one, sorry for the numbering, is to update the town website accordingly. Next, please. So this is what this is in the report. This map shows you the months of the year across the top, the number of the species that are allowed to be hunted down the left, and the black are the months and periods of months when hunting is allowed on Concom land. So there's another slide which is more complex that shows what weapons can be used. But this map shows you that there is hardly a day in the year when somebody can't be walking. The law allows for somebody to be walking around in the woods on our conservation land any time of the year with a weapon and shooting at wildlife that the state says it has a season on it. And you can see we got chipmunks, porcupines, skunks, starlings, so on, weasels, so on. There's 23 species plus migratory birds. Next. So this is the other choice. This is the compromise choice that preserves hunting of deer and pheasants, grouse, turkey, and rabbit. And when I talked with Mass Wildlife, these are the key species that they think are most important for their clientele. And the state depends on license sales for its income. And in particular, they like pheasants and turkey because younger people can start there and they're interested in growing their constituency. So this is, to me, a great compromise because it allows hunting to continue for the most popular species, but it eliminates the possibility of people wandering around the woods with firearms and plinking at various things for which the seasons are open about any time of the year. So it makes hunting much more predictable for the public. Next, please. That's it, Michelle. And if there's any questions, I'm open for it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Thanks. I think we're gonna just move to the next presentation, and please hold comments or questions for the commissioner discussion. Andre. You're muted, Andre.
Thank you.
So I understand you wanted 30 minutes, so if we can do quicker, the more time we have for discussion, but I'll at 28 minutes, I'll just give you a indication you have 2 left, okay?
All right. Oh, you'll give me a 2-minute warning?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna need to get figure out how to get my presentation on. So let's see. How do I get to present here?
Do you see a green share sort of at the bottom center of your
Yeah.
If you click on that, you should get to select what screen you're sharing.
Okay. I think I did. Does it,
Yep, you see it.
you can see it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's let me pull up another item here real quick. There we go.
So Andre, if you're sharing more than one document, you might need to unshare and then reshare and click on the new item just to give you a heads up.
Sure. It's the PowerPoint that I'm looking to share. So if everybody can see it, we'll continue. We'll get started. Okay.
I can see it.
You all can see it. Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, first, I just wanted to make sure, thank everybody for coming to this meeting, including the public. This is just in case folks are not clear on it. The Amherst Conservation Commission decided to form a subcommittee to go to revamp and review the regulations that have to do with conservation land. There was a three-person subcommittee put together, and they worked tirelessly for a long time to try and revamp the regulations. They did a wonderful job. I just feel like the hunting issue was not covered properly or fairly, and that's part of what I'm going to discuss for hunting. We're looking for a healthy discussion here, and what I find to be important here is discussing facts. So let's see if I can move to my next. There we go. So yeah, the reason why we're here to speak today is that the subcommittee made proposals of different different newly revamped regulations, and one of the proposals that was set forth was to ban hunting on all conservation lands. In December 4th of 2024, the subcommittee presented the full commission all of their proposed regulations. One of the in where it came to hunting, it essentially said hunting is prohibited on all conservation lands, reversing decades of or beyond decades of tradition of people hunting on these lands, and reversing as well the stated policies and philosophy of the town of Amherst. We will be talking about all of those. Again, after the full commission rejected the proposal to prohibit hunting, the subcommittee went back and eventually put together a document called Hunting on Amherst Conservation Lands Alternatives. And it gave several alternatives. I think you've seen the condensed version of the alternatives in the previous presentation, so I'm not going to bore you with any more of that. As a quick background for myself, we did talk about, I think during the previous presentation, you heard some assumptions that enforcement of wildlife laws in certain areas would be a quandary and doesn't know, and how it's going to be a heck of a time and so on. Well, with 30 years of experience in enforcing wildlife laws, I think that I could speak to that. And I can tell you that any game warden, anybody enforcing those laws is going to know exactly what to do. I'll say as well, hunters, a good hunter is going to know where they are because they're going to know where to find the game. They're going to be looking for the game. They're going to know where the homes are. They're going to be looking at maps, and they will have GPSs. So just FYI. I was a special agent with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for 22 years, 22, 23 years. I was Officer of the Year 2 times during that time. I've checked hundreds and hundreds of hunters. I've watched hundreds more that I never checked, that never knew I ever watched them. I've conducted investigations into large-scale commercial operations, poaching, and so on. So I do have some experience in these matters. Not only that, I have a wildlife biology degree, and I've worked in as a wildlife biologist. And we're going to be talking here on a few different topics. So we're going to be talking about the town's philosophy on hunting and Amherst's rural character. We're going to talk about how hunting was not prohibited in Amherst conservation lands, unlike what the website says. And we can, I'm totally open to having that discussion at some point. We're going to discuss the Amherst Land Use Survey that took place last year. There was a discussion during that survey about, and there were some questions about user satisfaction. And you might be shocked, but safety was the least concern of anybody, and dogs were the biggest. We're going to talk about the history of discussions within the Conservation Commission and give a little background on where we started with all this. I'm going to mention some state laws and safety measures that should give us a little bit of reassurance about what hunters have to go through in order to legally hunt. I'll talk about a presentation by Dr. Martin Feehan to the commission. He is the state's deer biologist, deer and moose and health biologist. He gave us a presentation, and he made some very important points that were never included into the subcommittee's document that they shared with us. I'll just speak a little bit about making of regulations. And while I do this, I'll let you all know that I have participated in putting together federal regulations and commenting on federal regulations. And I've put together fine structures and so on with U.S. attorneys' offices and the judges in Rhode Island and in Kansas. So anyway, and then I'll conclude. When you think about our town, I mean, just think about some of the things that you like about the town. It's the wonderful people here, the amount of brain power that's here, the outdoors. I mean, it's got a wonderful rural character. Now, when you look at this, the Conservation Department website, you can see this slide that I'm presenting here, and it speaks about about maintaining and preserving Amherst's rural character. The highlighted area, I'm just going to read it real quick. Protected land is essential to Amherst's appearance, economy, and well-being. Conservation land helps maintain the town's rural character, provides adequate land area for traditional and modern forms of outdoor recreation, and protects important wildlife habitat for both game and non-game species. Protected farmland provides a permanent base on which to present The last point here, traditional resource-based economic activities such as agriculture and forestry and traditional forms of recreation such as fishing and hunting continue to play major roles in Amherst. The Conservation Commission and Conservation Department, that's us, continue to help keep these traditions and their associated cultural practices viable by working closely with farmers and farmland, blah, blah, blah. I think it's pretty clear that the town espouses hunting and the Conservation Commission is to do the same. As we were talking earlier in the previous presentation, this is all from the town's website, and the town website also included hunting regulations, which was which was very informative for everybody. And it also kind of curiously mentions that interfering with legal hunting activity is against the law. I mean, they go to the extent where the Conservation Department is making sure that people know that you can't interfere with hunting. I mean, it should be clear that the town's position is pro-hunting, or at least it's not anti-hunting. It has the regulations that that we were talking about before, the 500 and 150 feet buffers from a residence or from a elevated highway. And a quick, and then something about the Norwottuck Rail Trail. There is nothing here, and there's nothing in state law that ever that says anything or hints that there should be any buffers around a dirt trail. I'll argue that hunting has never been legally restricted in Amherst. And although the town website does state that only 8 or 9, depending on whether it's a current or not version, but it does say, like we saw in the previous presentation, that only certain amount of conservation areas are open and the rest are all closed. There has been no legal process at all to close these. As far as I can tell, somebody decided to just post that on the website, on the town's website, without being authorized to do so. I would like to see otherwise, and if it has been done otherwise, then that's fine. But I think this is an assumption. So we're starting from a different kind of we're not starting from an assumption of something that is actually true. There's no area that's where it's illegal other than these deeds. So during the subcommittee's meetings, they did find out that 2 of the conservation areas that had been listed as being open have deed restrictions. And Atkins Flats and Eastman Brook. Half of Atkins Flats, or a portion of Atkins Flats, is deeded to be closed, and apparently Eastman Brook is as well. I have no argument against that. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. When we all received, or when the subcommittee issued their alternatives document, there were statements made in that document that said that we have no way to figure out how to figure out user satisfaction for non-hunters on conservation lands. But it's not true. I mean, we have a survey that the subcommittee had in their hands and used for some of their things to such as dogs, dog regulations. And what we see here in this survey results that's in our that's right in front of us is that the main thing that folks are concerned about is dogs, and the least concern is safety. So if you take this survey and this was a very extensive survey, and following that, there was some questions to explain what it is. I think the question was essentially comment on what you think problems are within or areas of concern. And there was one comment about hunting, and they were actually asking whether hunting's allowed or not, and stating that if it's not allowed in Brickyard, that it needs to be properly posted so that hunters know that. There's another
Andre, I have a point of clarification, please.
Yep, in a minute. There was another comment that where somebody stated that we need more land to hunt.
This document wasn't available to the subcommittee. Erin put it together. Her deadline was end of December. She didn't make that. And the subcommittee actually didn't have a copy to consider. So
Okay. All
I
right.
think that's an important distinction. Thank you.
The fact is that the subcommittee had that in their hands. This was published in May of the last year, and the publication of or the creation of the alternatives document was finished April 1st of this year. So from May of last year to April 1st of this year, you had plenty of time to incorporate comments and so on into your discussion. I mean, what we're doing here is we're supposed to be discussing all factors to bring in to come up with an informed decision. We're not here to cut out what we don't agree with. So with that, I'll move. Look, and when you look at the satisfaction, I just want you to see question 1. 93.6% of the folks were either very satisfied or somewhat satisfied. And 79% of these people are daily or weekly users. So these are the folks who are out there most of the time. They're happy. They're not seeing hunting as an issue. So historically, let me just come back to this here for a second. So the website that we have, as we've discussed, had allowed 9 places that could be hunted. Now, back in 2022, the full commission got together to begin a process of reviewing the regulations. We never finished, and therefore that subcommittee was formed. But what's important to note is that the commission was looking to not change those hunting regulations before. Once the subcommittee got together, they began to discuss hunting and came up with the initial proposal December 4th of 2024 to prohibit hunting. And when that came up, I asked what the purposes or what the justification for prohibiting it was. And I really wasn't getting much of an answer other than for safety. So that made it so that later I had to go back and review all the subcommittee meetings where hunting was discussed. I spent loads and loads of time that you all had discussed it to try and figure out what was the justification or the reasoning and how we've morphed from hunting will be permitted on all conservation lands to hunting will be prohibited on conservation lands. Because I couldn't find, I wasn't getting an explanation, and so on. So you'll see here that there were several different reasons, including our statement mission, including safety, or facts that it's anyway, that it's prohibited. After I'll state also that after the rejection of the prohibition, we did end up getting the Massachusetts deer expert to come, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll be talking about that in one of the future slides. One of the things that I noticed during my review of the subcommittee's meetings and during and with some of the questions asked in the full committee or full commission is that there's some need for education. I think most of us don't know much about hunting. I think Alex has stated that he's a hunter as well, but I don't think we have a lot of folks who are experienced with it or know what people do when they're hunting. But let me just start by giving a little bit of background on what's necessary in order for somebody to hunt legally. First of all, they have to go through background checks. They have to have a firearms identification card document, FID, or they have to have a license to carry a firearm. Don't need them for bows or muzzle loaders. Hunter education is a course that all hunters need to complete. I had to complete it even back in 1981 in New York because I was under 17. During these hunter education courses, they learn to know their backgrounds. Hunters learn about ballistics. They learn to, they learn a lot of different things that are important that the state determines would make a more safe hunter out of these folks. Bow hunters are also required to take a bow hunter education course as well. And I'll just there's certain implements that are allowed. There are others that are not to be used to hunt here in Massachusetts. The only rifle that's allowed in during most of the time is a .22. Only during bear season are bear hunters allowed to carry a more powerful rifle. So what that leaves is folks hunting with bows and shotguns. If you're not familiar with what a shotgun does, it sends out a bunch of pellets, tiny little round BBs that are smaller than the BB. The BB that we are all familiar with that goes into a BB gun is about a number 4 sized pellet. But when you really consider it, we're talking about most of what bird hunters hunt with are going to be about 1.5 millimeters. That would be about maybe an eighth, not even an eighth, about around an eighth of an inch or so. deer hunters are going to shoot with typically one slug, which is one large projectile that fits in the shotgun. Or they might be shooting, if it's typically a lot closer up, they might shoot with several pellets buckshot. But I'll state that the smaller BBs, they don't travel very far because they don't have that much mass, therefore they don't have that much reach. Having been an agent and having been watched a lot of people hunting, I've been peppered by shot many times, and it hasn't been an issue. I'm not asking folks to do that. The hunters didn't know that I was there, but what I can tell you is that that they are not very dangerous at a distance. Alex, I would much rather you ask the questions at the end, but
Yeah, Alex, can you just hold off for the end and
I'm
just
not aware
FYI
that I had my hand up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And just FYI, you're at 6 more minutes.
I have a little more than that to do, though. So you have a set of implements. The state has determined that the way to keep people safe in the state is to not permit discharge of firearms within 500 feet of an occupied dwelling or occupied building. And you can't discharge a firearm 150 feet from a roadway or over a roadway. They have made, this whole idea of assigning these 500-foot buffers to trails it's frankly ridiculous. I'm sorry to put it that way, but I don't see anywhere where that's drawn from. You can walk anywhere in this state in any trail, and there's no 500-foot buffer assigned to it. So just make that point. When it comes to the proposal, these alternatives proposal, I'm assuming that all of the subcommittee members are in agreement with everything that was written on that, or am I incorrect about that? That's a question to the three of you.
I mean, we can
Alex?
discuss that during the discussion, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, so this is the alternatives proposal. There were no compelling arguments to prohibit hunting. I mean, when you make a proposal like this that's so far-reaching and a complete reversal of what the town's policies are, you need to really justify that justify the proposal to prohibit hunting. And frankly, I haven't seen the justification. What I've seen is a whole lot of conjecture, a whole lot of assumptions. Assumptions such as what we heard before. Law enforcement is going to have a heck of a time enforcing. How do you know? You know, we need to be talking about that amongst each other so that we can each give what we know or give our, provide our experience toward it. The tone and the arguments made are completely, or they just seem quite one-sided to the extent to where the author or authors refer to hunters repeatedly as its instead of their. And I mean, I don't understand the dehumanization of your fellow trail users. I mean, I'm out there on the trails probably 5 times a week. I use it all year round. I hunt on conservation land and almost nobody hunts on conservation land between between the end of the season in December and October. So that's somewhere that's a point we can begin to talk from. Anyway, you know, the proposals, the alternatives that we have seen have not really been, they're just, they would all limit hunting. Except if you're going to leave it as is. Again, there was no mention whatsoever of the very good presentation that we all had from Dr. Martin Feehan, the deer biologist. And really, when you look at this, I think that what we really need is a little bit of education here, not only for the commissioners, but also for folks, for anybody who's going to be offended or scared by seeing hunters out on the trail. Now, remember now, during the hunting season, it's fall time. There are no leaves on the trees. You can see through the woods here. All right. I don't think I heard anybody mention that before, nor during the subcommittee meetings. So, now we go back to the population, to the census, where, as you see here, the alternatives document uses language such as, quote, Amherst having an exponential growth. Well, if you look at the growth, you have about 40, I think it's somewhere around 44,000 people of growth between 1940 and 1980 or so. Look at what but from the year 2000, or you can go all the way back to the year 1990 to current date, we've only had a recruitment of 4,000 new people to this population. How can you make the argument that we're undergoing exponential growth when you have when you yourself presented the data that contradicts this? I mean, anybody reading this can see that.
Andre, we're at 30 minutes now. How much longer do you think you need?
Well, let me just take a look here. I have another 10 slides to go. I'll try to make it.
Okay.
And I apologize for the time. I just find it important for, you know, I think all of us as commission members, we're all familiar with what we're talking about, but the public hasn't seen half of this stuff. So I just want to make sure that everybody sees this. Now, I'll give a quick rundown on Dr. Martin Feehan's presentation. Essentially, the higher the deer density, there's going to be a decrease in important native plants and insects, and there's going to be a degradation of the habitat, and that negatively impacts birds and other animals. You'll see increased invasives. The deer will browse. They'll eat all they, you know, whatever they can. Now, as far as deer are concerned, we have some major issues with deer ticks here in this area. Right here at UMass is the New England Center of Excellence in Vector-Borne Diseases. I've sent, you can take ticks off of you and send them in, and they'll tell you whether whether it's infected with Lyme disease or not. What they have found in their surveys around Amherst is that about 40%, 47% or so of the ticks are infected with Lyme. So the more dense the population of deer in this area, the more ticks we're going to have, the more Lyme disease we'll have. I'll tell you that I've been treated 12 or more times for Lyme. My daughter was just found to have Lyme right now. We found out today. Dr. Feehan also mentioned the current status of deer density in this area. And what he emphasized was the fact that we're beyond the 18 deer per square mile that is healthy for this environment here. And what happens in wildlife is that when populations begin to overpopulate, that growth becomes exponential if it's unchecked. And we do have at least one other wildlife biologist on our commission. This is a list of the deer harvest in Amherst. When you look at these amounts, since in the last several years, you could see that the deer harvest has increased quite a bit in the Amherst area. Yet the recruitment of new hunters has decreased. And in fact, the amount of people engaging in hunting activities has decreased quite a bit. So what that tells you is, one of the things it could tell you, I won't bet my life on it, but one of the things that can be an indicator of is this increasing population and more availability of deer to the hunters. Just another one of those warnings that Dr. Feehan was giving us. Dr. Feehan noted the the environmental impact, as we were talking before, of high deer density. What he also noticed and mentioned was that Amherst has a fairly high, when he was in Amherst, he could see the deer browse line as he's driving around, where essentially the vegetation between the ground and where a deer can reach has been wiped out because the deer eat the leaves and mostly the buds, and that wipes out generations of new trees and so on. I'm going to skip past most of this, but if you all are, if any of you are familiar with the issues that they've had in the Quabbin, Quabbin did not allow hunting for decades, and they ended up having to open the areas to hunting, and in fact now encourage it even on places where the public is not allowed to go, like the Prescott Peninsula. They're doing everything they can to try and convince people to hunt and to take more females, more does, because that's how you can control the populations. Dr. Feehan presented a case study on Middleborough that closed hunting on the Conservation Commission, closed hunting on their properties, and eventually tried to went back on things, realizing that their deer are getting overpopulated, and then they had a really hard time finding folks to actually hunt deer there. Dr. Feehan also spoke of what an important resource game is. And in case any of you forgot, 11.4% of hunters would classify as food insecure. Tell them they can't hunt in conservation lands, and how fair do you figure that is? Folks give away a lot of meat. There's a lot of community around hunting, and I feel like, and I think it's important to note that there's a large population outside of you and me, so to speak, who depends on that. Here's part of the impact of that program. If you're familiar with familiar with places, food banks, such as the Nipmuc Land Project, Pequog Farm, Northampton Survival Center, Franklin Food Pantry. I mean, these are all places that receive meat from hunters, and who depend on that. This is, so hunting isn't just a bunch of folks out there with guns. Dr. Feehan also mentioned vehicle deer car collisions, and what you have here is an indication of how many car collisions there were in 2024, and you've got 22 in Amherst. Imagine that, right? So every time that, I think it's the insurance, some Insurance Information Institute put out that every vehicle animal collision averages out to be about $10,000 of damage. I can tell you a kid who was about 22 years old he killed a deer right in front of my house. His truck was totaled. How, a professional woman who was driving through hit a deer in front of the house also, and we looked all over to try and find the deer after that. This is happening on a regular basis throughout Amherst. It's also a safety concern. People can get hurt. This information, by the way, was available to the subcommittee members by going to DOT, the Department of Transportation, and finding it there. Alex can probably find it on his phone right now as he's texting. So a quick blurb on regulations. I mean, what's the reasons for regulations? I mean, you come up with regulations to address problems and find solutions to them. What I could say is that the alternatives document didn't expose problems. The main, actually, it did expose a problem. The problem that I can see is that there's an education issue. There's a discussion issue. We need to be talking about these things. So I didn't see reasons why it was necessary to make these rules. So as I was saying before, I couldn't get reasons from the subcommittee other than for proposing curtailing hunting, other than safety. So when I went back through all of these meetings, what I found was 4 different things, 4 different topics: safety, the statement that hunting doesn't go along with or is in contravention to the mission statement of the Conservation Commission, that user sensitivity or satisfaction needs to be taken into account, or that some folks would have issues with hunting. I think the word used in the document was some people abhor hunting. When it came to safety, there's no hunting related deaths. It's highly regulated. Hunting is highly regulated by the state, and we haven't had any issues. As far as the mission statement, we have a mission. Let me see if I could. I don't think I need to find it, but the mission statement that was pointed out essentially is that the commission is to protect the environment and the wildlife on it. I don't think it specifies wildlife, but when that came up, 2 of the members of the subcommittee, or one of the members of the subcommittee and another person in the meeting mentioned to the chairperson, well, look, when hunting is used to, what would you say to people who say that hunting is used as a viable form of wildlife management, and that it, I think the words were that it helps forest health, I think. Whatever it was, the answer by the chair was, I don't believe any of that. And this is after having said several times that that he's a trained wildlife biologist, and one of the other people in the meeting called him an expert. Go ahead, Bruce. I can't hear you.
I want to make sure there's time for questions, and Rochelle has asked that we wrap it up, so please do.
I'll wrap it up as soon as I can, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay, we are eating into discussion and public comment time, Andre, so if you can wrap it up, that'd be great.
I will. I'm going to wrap it up as soon as I can here. So just to come back to that, as far as user sensitivity and satisfaction, all we need to do is look at the land use survey. And when it comes to folks who have different philosophies, education, discussion, and maybe not everybody can be satisfied. I really don't know. As far as the possible outcomes from this discussion, and this is my last slide, by the way, just so you all know, is we've discussed, we've seen issues of safety and so on. I think personal philosophy is real. You can't tell people to think differently. I know there are a lot of folks who are against hunting, and we have to accept the fact that folks are for and against. I don't, but maybe some education or some conversations that promote understanding, respect are important. And I completely agree with the part in the alternatives document where it says suggests, or in one of the other documents, suggesting that as far as dogs are concerned, people need to be educated. I think it's on all of the items that we cover. I appreciate your patience. I apologize for taking longer than I expected, but I hope that this filled you all in as much as possible. I'll stop sharing, and we can come back to our regular meeting. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks, Andre. So we're going to move now to public comment. So if there's any comment, please raise your hand, and we're going to keep this to 2 minutes per person. Okay, going once for public comment. All right. I see somebody. Ellen, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you all for the opportunity to provide a public comment. My name is Ellen Jedri-Gadera. I'm a resident of South Amherst. And I'm writing to, well, I wrote this as a letter. I did not submit it before the period, but I want to urge the commission not to limit hunting on its conservation lands. And there are many sound scientifically based reasons not to limit hunting, especially in Amherst. And I'm speaking to you not as a hunter myself, but as a conservationist, as a wildlife biologist, and someone who cares deeply about our natural world and our impact upon it. When you limit hunting or eliminate it, it really takes away our only tool to effectively manage, particularly our deer populations. That's the only one we have. Deer have no natural predators left here in Massachusetts. We eliminated wolves and mountain lions in the mid 1800s. And aside from the occasional coyote, it's really humans or vehicles that are the only predator of white-tailed deer. But while the numbers of hunters are declining in Massachusetts, deer density is rising, especially out here in Western Mass. Without predators, it's pretty well documented that deer will overbrowse their habitat, reduce biodiversity, reduce the number of native plants, insects, and birds, and invasives and exotics will increase. And while growing to high densities, deer will spread ticks, especially the black-legged tick, which carries Lyme and a number of other tick-borne illnesses. And the rates of Lyme only continue to increase out here. And I've known countless friends and biologists who have tested positive for Lyme and other illnesses like anaplasmosis, babesiosis, all of which can be life-threatening or life-altering and even life-threatening. When deer density increases, Lyme disease increases. There's a direct correlation. Taking away hunting, there will be an increase in tick density and Lyme disease. Deer car collisions have also increased in Amherst over the past 20 years. On my own road, which is Bay Road, I've personally seen 5 deer hit in the past 6 years that we've lived here. And that's an underestimate because we know at least 2 that were hit and got away. And the people in those accidents have been fortunate, but and they've been okay. But the possibility of a serious or fatal accident looms each fall in particular. When you take away hunting as a management tool, the numbers of deer vehicle collisions are going to increase. And we have a high number each year. Deer have an increased impact, they will have an increased impact on farms and crops. Since we've moved here, my partner has been asked to hunt at 2 different large farms that are important sources of food for people in and around our town because the deer are impacting local crops. So I wonder if the commission has reached out to the farming community to ask for their input around hunting restrictions in Amherst. I also think they're a really important food source for many families in Western Mass, including Amherst and my own family. And for us, it means reducing our need for buying beef from cattle each year, and that reduces our own family's climate impact. I'm really grateful to be able to obtain meat that was able to live in the wild, that grew here locally, that was harvested locally, processed locally. Hunting is really a dying tradition, and it's a way of life that is going away. There's a lot of knowledge that's being lost with every hunter we lose. And I didn't grow up in the tradition of hunting, and I really grew up in a world of processed food and grocery stores, but as an outdoor and animal lover. And for many years, I was against hunting. And as I grew older and went through my education in wildlife biology and conservation, I began to understand a lot more about my own impacts on the world I was living in and on the wildlife and wild areas that I loved so much. And by working with a number of hunters through various jobs and graduate work, I realized that hunting actually plays a critical role in our ability to maintain biodiversity here in North America. The hunters I've worked with have been very well educated, conservation-minded, ethical people who really care about what they're doing. Every single one has been concerned with safety, and if they see you out in the woods, they're going to move away from you. They don't want to be near members of the public, both for safety and because, you know, when I'm out there with my kids and we're making noise and we're in blaze orange, we're going to push the animals away. Massachusetts has a really good safety record for hunters. And if you're worried about safety or worried that hunters aren't concerned for your welfare, I hope you can meet some hunters and learn from them as I have. There are a lot of really wonderful people. They're really the first conservationists in this country, and you may have more in common with them than you think. So I appreciate you listening to my comments and have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Is there any more public comment? I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, we'll move on to commissioner discussion. Okay, so just to put a frame around this, we have under discussion tonight, the subcommittee's proposal, which includes 4 alternatives. We can, of course, consider alternatives to that. So the 4th, and Alex, please jump me in if I'm not characterizing these. Oh, I see another hand up. Okay. I'll come back to this. Okay, last public comment, and I'm going to keep you to 2 minutes. Go ahead, Jason.
Jason, you're muted. Can somebody tell him how to unmute him? Can somebody please tell him how to unmute?
I sent him a request to unmute, which he just has to click.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. But I'm just wondering, like, so on the conservation trails, so I probably have roughly a mile of conservation trail that runs through my land. Would that be closing my land down to public hunting? Because if that's the case, I would like to actually not have dogs on the trail because nobody follows the leash law.
I guess we have 4 alternatives which would affect that in different ways. So I guess stay tuned to the conversation. Do you know which property you abut that you're talking about?
Pretty much the whole Brookfield Trails on my property.
Brookfield? Okay. So
Yeah.
you're saying you're in favor of hunting to control?
Absolutely. I mean, just the deer, they're always, eating vegetation and doing stuff,
Okay. And something about having people keep their dogs on leash?
Oh, it's a big problem. I mean, dogs are running in hay fields and other stuff, and you try to talk to people and like they don't they don't listen.
Okay, I see.
I've had
Okay.
dogs on my own property actually chase us on horses, and people are thinking that it's my fault.
Okay, thank you, Jason. We gotcha.
All right.
Okay, back to commissioner discussion now. So let's see. The alternatives presented in the document from the subcommittee, including the status quo, which is hunting of all species in accordance with citizens and regulations for the state on the current conservation areas where they are posted on the website as being allowed. So that would then also exclude those that were found to have a deed restriction for hunting. Okay, the second one is the same locations as previously stated, but hunting restricted to deer, turkey, pheasant, and rabbit, excluding other species. So allowable for deer, turkey, pheasant, rabbit, excluding other species, same locations as currently allowed. 3, alternative 1, which is hunting of all species with the public safety buffers presented by Alex. And this, yes, same locations as stated previously. Alternative 2, I guess I'm having trouble, Alex, distinguishing between 2 and 1. Oh, 2 would be just hunting for deer, turkey, pheasant, and rabbit with the safety buffers. 5 is hunting is not allowed on conservation land. So those are options before us. I'd like commissioners to think about what information, additional information, if any, they need to make a decision or continue a productive conversation on this. and obviously ask questions of those who have produced information for tonight. So hands up from commissioners, please.
Michelle, can you
Sure.
restate what it is that you're asking us to raise our hands for?
Well, we're continuing our discussion, so we need to know, are you ready to vote on this now? Do you need more information to consider those 5 alternative scenarios proposed by the subcommittee, which eventually is what we're going to vote on? So what is our stance on hunting? So basically that 1 through 5 that I just wrote, but also questions, open discussion. So any of the above. Bruce.
I'm curious for anyone who knows the answer. Well, looking just at the land that the town owns in Amherst and private land where hunting is allowed, not let the stuff we own in Belchertown and other towns go to the side for now. But of all that land that is open for hunting now, what percentage of it approximately is on conservation land? Because as was stated, there's a lot of open hunting land on DPW land and private land. And so just curious. what we're talking
Dave,
about.
Dave, did you have a number on that?
Could you repeat the question? Oops, I froze. Could you repeat the question, Bruce?
All of the land that is currently open to hunting in Amherst, what percentage of it is on conservation land? Roughly.
I don't even think I can take a stab at that, Bruce, because, when we say what land is open to hunting, there are thousands of acres, a few thousand acres of farmland, for instance. Each farmer decides whether that land is open to hunting or not, and to what kind of hunting. So I think I wish I had the answer, but I just don't think I can. I will say that, we have about 2,400 acres of conservation land. Then we have about 2,000 acres of preserved APR farmland that's all private. Each one of those farmers can decide whether they want to open their land, and many do, to hunting.
What's the DPW number?
That might have been on a previous
Yeah,
slide.
I think it was around 3,000,
Yeah,
somewhat comparable.
and that's all open to hunting.
Yeah, and you need to distinguish between what's in Amherst, like you had, to your question, Bruce, how much of that is in Amherst and how much is outside?
Most of those numbers were in Amherst, but yeah.
Yeah, they're typically watershed.
Jason.
I'm curious to hear from Dave as far as one of the things that Andre brought up is that there seems to have been no formal process to actually close conservation land to hunting other than those that are deed restricted when they were sold to the town. So can you give us, Dave, some background on how it came that, from what I see, like roughly 1/3 of conservation land is open for hunting now in those 8 or 9 locations? How did that come to be? And then is that actually something that is true, or is that just something that was posted on the website?
Yeah, so is that okay, Michelle?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So great question. First of all, this is very helpful, very informative. I'm just appreciating the conversations we're having. I initiated this process a few years ago. Through you, planted a seed with you that we needed to take a look at all of our regulations, top to bottom, rules and regulations. So here we are. The commission has essentially put forth a number of them that have been at least voted on. There still needs to be a public hearing on anything you do. There would need to be a public hearing on everything you've already put forth, separate from hunting. So I just want to put that out to the public listening. So here we are, I put forth this idea, and what we kind of said when the subcommittee started was, let's take a look at where we are today. We'll take a look back, and then, but we're gonna take a look back, but we're gonna focus on where we are today and looking forward. So what I can say about what is on the website, and it's interesting, I get almost no pushback from hunters. I've been working in the town as the conservation director and then other titles for 20 years. I get almost no pushback from hunters about the current areas that are huntable or not huntable for conservation land. So I just want to put that out there. We have not changed those in roughly 20 years that I've been with the town. They were carried over from previous commission conversations and votes. I will say this is not a new topic for the Amherst Conservation Commission. It has been talked about off and on through the 20 years I've been here, and before that, there were extensive conversations and some very heated conversations about what were areas that were acceptable to be hunted in Amherst and those that weren't. So, and just to put it out there again for the public, we have conservation areas that are half an acre to 60 or 80 acres. And I think we carried forward, myself and staff, Aaron has been here for 5 or so years, but previous wetlands folks and other conservation staff, land managers, simply carried forward what was discussed and voted on by previous commissions. We haven't changed that. I don't think we've changed it at all in the years I've been here, because the commission really had no appetite for changing it. So we didn't. It wasn't until I initiated this process and planted that seed with you all, and we formed the subcommittee a couple of years ago, that we began to look at everything from community gardens, as Alex stated earlier, community gardens and trails and horses and dogs and motorized vehicles, et cetera, and the list goes on. So that's kind of the short answer, Jason, is not much has changed. And there really hasn't been much pushback from hunters and the public. You know, as Andre stated, there hasn't been an overwhelming number of complaints. They do come into me every once in a while, and the commission actually received, I think there was one in 2024, but there haven't been an overwhelming number of complaints or concerns raised about hunting through the years, but they do come in from time to time.
And Jason, I was just gonna maybe also explain that the subcommittee did explore that. If you're asking how are those sites determined, we don't know for sure, but in looking at each of those sites, it seems to be that they're the bigger sites that have kind of more core area and are not directly near housing areas. So it's that seemed to be the line of reasoning, but there isn't any kind of document that we could refer to where they explain the determination.
So are we on the right side of the wall then by not allowing hunting on those?
Oh, the ones that I listed are available for hunting. So you mean not allowing
Right.
the other
I know, I
sites?
understand the ones that
Yeah.
are available. That's not,
Yeah.
my question is not about the ones that are available, it's the ones that are not available to hunters and to hunting. Are we on the right side of the wall by not allowing them? I mean, if we can't point to a document or some process that we went through that changed our regulations, and this is again just from what Andre presented and what was in one of the other presentations, was stating the Massachusetts law says that these lands should be open to hunting or must be open to hunting. I don't know what the exact wording was, but
Yeah,
that's my concern, is that
it's unless
wasn't closed.
posted, right? So the challenge is posting. Dave, were you gonna chime in on that? The authority of the town to set its rules for town-owned lands. I mean, we're gonna come back to this, but lands are open to hunting in Massachusetts unless otherwise posted. So there's a challenge there. The miles and miles of perimeter.
I see
Go
Andre
ahead.
has his hand up, but
Okay.
I would argue that the information on the website has been carried through for years and years, with almost no change, particularly in this section. And I was looking at the section while others were making presentations. We haven't adjusted that significantly in the years I've been here. So I would argue that, yes, it is, the commission is well within their jurisdiction, their legal rights to carry forth earlier decisions of former conservation commissions. You are also within your rights to reconsider those today in 2025. So that's, I think, where we are. I mean, that applies to all the things that the subcommittee looked at, right? Dogs, dog regulations, motorized vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the purpose. That was one of the purposes of the subcommittee.
Andre?
I don't think that, and with all due respect, Dave, I don't think that Dave has answered the question posed, which is, was there a legal process that we can point to where hunting was prohibited on all but those initial 9 properties? And I can tell you that I've done as much of an exhaustive search as I could, and I found nothing indicating that anybody in the past has prohibited hunting. When you look at all the documents, so well, let's just put a real quick, rapid reverse. If somebody were to be caught hunting on one of the properties that's closed, how would you charge them? What law would you refer to charge them? I mean, you need to talk to your town. What did your town attorney tell you, Dave?
What did,
What,
I haven't asked her.
So I think if
I don't know what you're.
if you haven't talked to the town attorney about this, what or if you have, tell us what the town attorney has mentioned about this subject, because I'm curious too. How do you charge somebody who's violated a law that's never been written? There is no law. It's not illegal. Show
Well,
me.
maybe we can think about this going forward and not what is in the past. So what the subcommittee's charge is to consider all of these and make a rule. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
get
guess
it.
I
Thank
would.
you for the interruption, but where the subcommittee has started is by saying that only 9 places are open to hunting, when in fact there's nothing saying that all those other places are closed. So why do we start on a false assumption? That's kind of where I'm going, and I think that's a conversation we can talk about at
Yeah,
some.
it's an interesting line of argument. I guess what I would suggest is that that same argument could be used for everything that we currently post on the website. So maybe every area is open to mountain bikes right now. Maybe, you know, community gardens can be placed anywhere. So what I'm trying to get to, in this age of technology, many votes of committees, boards, et cetera, carry forth onto websites. So the way we communicate to the public, typically in conservation and even recreation, is what is on the website and what is on a sign or a kiosk, or a way we reach people out in the field, is a reflection of the rules and regulations. For instance, dawn to dusk. We have carried forth that conservation areas are open in Amherst dawn to dusk, and that's pretty typical in, you know, other towns and municipalities. But how, you know, can I point to a vote where a conservation commission said dawn to dusk? I can't. One of the reasons, you know, maybe we can go back before the internet and before the web and look through hard copy files. Maybe we need to. I'm not interested, nor do I have the time to do that. I would like to look forward. And if we're going to look at all the conservation lands again, and maybe this is a good recommendation to make, is we look at all the conservation areas again and say, what is the rationale for any of them, whether they're 1 acre, 5 acres, or 80 acres, to be open or closed. And that might be a recommendation coming out of this discussion.
Thanks, Dave. I'm gonna go to Rachel because she hasn't spoken yet. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, I did have a question. It seems like we're conflating hunting with carrying a firearm. And from the information that was presented, it sounded like there are other activities that do not use firearms. So I feel like I'd like to understand if this is something that we were going to prohibit or limit or restrict beyond what there is now. I would want to know more about what activities fall in the category of hunting that doesn't involve a loaded firearm, because there may be activities that count as hunting that could happen within 500 feet of a house or 150 feet of a roadway. And I would want to know more about that, rather than saying no hunting anywhere.
Thanks, Rachel.
I can add.
Yeah, is there an answer to that to
Yeah,
address Rachel's?
if I'm collecting, if I'm out there with my kids and I want to collect some frogs or whatever, you need a license for that, a fishing license for that. Still hunting, you're still hunting. If you're hunting with a bow, it's not a 500-yard thing, it's a 300 foot. I mean, not 500 feet, it's 300 feet. Although I think they just changed that to 5. But there are, you know, there are ways to hunt. You can hunt with a pellet gun, and that's not considered a firearm. So there are activities that don't fall within those buffers to homes and roads that can be conducted without violating those safety regulations.
Okay, I think Andre Jason, go ahead. Or yep.
Yeah, no, I just I was gonna kind of comment on the previous question and the previous comment that I think that we ought to find out about the hunting and when it was listed as not being permitted, just because I think it's a potential gray area. If somebody were to be caught hunting on some land where it's supposedly not allowed. But piggybacking off of what Rachel said, are you allowed to trap? Can you trap for like fur on conservation land? I mean, that's considered hunting, but you're not using a firearm. But also traps can be pretty nasty if a dog or a person were to step in them. So is that something that's allowed? I didn't see anything about
Yeah, we talked about trapping, but I can't remember what the consensus was.
Don't
Alex, are
remember
either. Sorry, what?
I don't remember either.
I can't, somebody said something, I can't hear it. but-
I said I don't remember either.
Oh, okay, sorry. Your audio is a little weird.
All right, we'll work on it.
Okay, so I guess we don't, I thought Alex knew the answer to that, but maybe Andre does. So does trapping fall under the hunting regulations, or is it separately regulated?
Trapping has their own set of regulations. So if they were to be dealt with, they'd be dealt with separately as well. But just so you know, leg hold traps are banned in Massachusetts. So you're not going to find legal leg hold traps. I mean, I've found a lot of, you know, you can find people use them to kill avian predators at times. They'll put a trap on top of a birdhouse or whatever, and certain buteos will certain genera of birds will use those to hunt off of, and they'll get caught in those traps. Anyway, no, leg hold traps are not permitted in the state. I think we
Okay.
should probably address trapping on conservation land as an issue at some point.
It's already been
Alex?
addressed.
Yeah, Alex, could you just comment up on that, how it's been addressed or how it was considered?
Yeah, it's already been adopted by the commission. Trapping is prohibited on conservation land except during I think it's beaver season. You can trap beavers using cage traps, but to use a lethal trap, you need a special permit. And also the health department can authorize lethal traps in order to solve beaver problems, but that requires them to authorize that. But trapping is not hunting. It has its own set of rules.
Okay, thank you. That seems like we have consensus on that. Okay, I think Bruce,
So one thing
sorry,
thing-
Andre, I can't really tell. There's no rhyme or reason to
Yeah,
the
but-
board. Yeah,
Well,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Bruce.
Andre, go ahead and then I'll follow.
All right.
Thanks, Bruce. So when it comes to these closed areas that have not been that nothing's been codified, you know, we can make the argument that as a commission or as some commission 20 years ago might have decided something that it's in some minutes somewhere or whatever, but when it but what law enforcement enforces is laws. And if there is no law, there is no prohibition. It's as simple as that. Why did we put together bylaws? Well, because they're laws, because we want to enforce them. So laws need to, one of the things I didn't say during the presentation, laws need to be addressing a problem. They need to be understood, and they need to be enforceable. So this law is not understood because nobody can look at the wording of the law. Remember that the wording of laws is the most important part of it. Nobody can look at that. We can't enforce it. It doesn't exist. You can say on the website something, but you're never gonna, but it's not true. It is not a law. And I would welcome finding it if it's there, and I think it's something we should all honor if it exists, but we haven't seen anything. So we can't start with the assumption that everything's closed except for 9 places. So, and again, this is, I'm saying this because our alternative options that we were given all start from that premise. And my point that I'm trying to bring up is that we can't start there. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, this is also a policy document and a regulation document, so not everything, almost nothing really goes to the level of law. They are policies, just to put some context there. Okay, Bruce.
Very quickly to follow Rachel. One thing to remember, which we did discuss, is the complexity of some of the places where there are these buffers, but in order to get to a place where hunting can be undertaken, a hunter has to walk through the no hunting areas. And so, yes, there is a distinction between carrying the firearm and using it. And that was a complication that was difficult to piece apart in our discussions. Thank you.
Can I clarify one point on that?
Okay,
That the actual carrying of that firearm through that property is legal, according to state laws.
Yeah, I think if it's unloaded.
Dick, I'm just for those who don't know.
Provided that it's unloaded.
Yes, exactly.
Dave.
Yeah, a couple of quick follow-ups. One is normally when a member of the public is done making their public comment, we move them back out to the audience. Is that possible, Aaron? It's just pretty standard. Yeah, I think we have multiple options here. I'm interested in moving forward. We can do some research and look as far back as we can go. What we're talking about is hard copy records. There may be a vote which would codify those areas. We can look. It's not as easy as some people might think, because if it's not digitized, going back into the 1980s or 1990s is real challenging from a hard copy standpoint. We could give it a look, and I may do that based on some history I know. So I'm happy to do that. I'm more interested in looking forward, and maybe what we need is more of an analysis or a look at, at the parcels we currently own. And as Andre suggested, maybe starting from scratch, if you will, starting from scratch and just saying what areas of we have over 70 parcels of land in Amherst.
No, I think they're more than that.
Or I said there's more than 70. Thank you for the clarification. But what of those, should all of them be open to hunting? Should that half an acre on Middle Street or Puffer's Pond or wherever, or do we need to regulate those more than state law already does? I think that's a fair question. So maybe that's a way to go, is to look forward and say, let's look at all these areas with trails and adjacent to schools and recreation areas and houses and rail trails and all the rest of it, and take a look. And maybe the commission lands on state law is fine, but maybe the commission, and it's well within your right to say, no, we'd like to regulate it more than state law, and that's your prerogative. So I think that's an option to move forward too. I don't think we're going to conclude any. I suggest we're likely not to conclude something tonight, and it doesn't appear that the commission is to vote on something, but I don't, obviously I'm not a member of the commission. So thanks.
Yeah, and for everybody who's commenting, if there's something specific that would be helpful for you to come to an opinion, then please express that. Andre.
Thanks again.
Oh, Andre, I'm sorry. One other thing before it goes out of my head, I forgot one thing. I will say that almost all of our discussion tonight has been exclusively about deer hunting. So that is intriguing to me. I just think it's important for members of the public and for members of the commission to think beyond deer, because we've really been talking about deer hunting. So there's lots of other kinds of hunting. Andre, you've mentioned a couple or implements for hunting, but we haven't really focused much on other species. So most of the emphasis has been on deer hunting. Just an observation.
Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Andre.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more, Dave, with the need to go through the different properties. Again, if we don't find something if we don't find some proof that that the statement on the website is correct, then yeah, let's get to it and tackle the issue with facts and with an open mind. I mean, I think that's a great point, and I would do that any day. I'm willing to engage in those conversations. Thank you.
Alex.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I did generate a slide. Then Erin has it. Maybe she could bring it up, but it has a simplified version of what our decision choices are, and they were 1, 2, 3, 4. Two of them would leave deer alone, and a bunch of other species. One is maintain status quo. So nothing, all the comments about deer and what they cause, the first choice of status quo would mean deer hunting would stay the same. The second one would maintain hunting of, I think, 4 or 5 species. So deer again would be hunted. The third one is the prohibition, and then the fourth and fifth had to do with sort of secondary things about hunter orange and posting signs. But so that slide is there if you want to bring it up in summary at the end. I also wanted to point out that in the document itself, there is a table, and it lists all the implements that are allowed per species, and they run the gamut from handguns to rifles to shotguns, etc. So I went through all of Division of Wildlife's regulations and painstakingly listed that in table, I think it's 2. So, and they do name air guns, for example, as being a legal implement for some critters. And there was another, when the subcommittee was working and we started looking at the effect of the 500-foot safety buffer that the legislature passed, Aaron generated some maps, and I think the Kestrel Trust already had some maps with that buffer on it. Simmons Farm, for example, was the first one I found. And the request was made to Dave to look at all the conservation areas and whether or not they were affected by the 500-foot buffer. That never got done. That was just a staffing issue. However, when I was talking with the manager of Division of Fish and Wildlife in Belchertown, he told me that he has a statewide map of that buffer, that 500-foot buffer, because people contact him and say, what's going on here? Can I hunt there? And he looks it up. He told me when I was talking with him that he would share that. So there's a person who's willing to work with us on this buffer thing. So using the Division of Wildlife's statewide buffer, we could look at every single parcel of conservation land, and somehow like 150 parcels comes to mind. I'm not sure about that, but there's some of them are so small that most of them, or many of them, would be in a 500-foot buffer, and it wouldn't take much cooperating with Belchertown to use his statewide buffer map to figure that out. That's not a big job, and it would save Aaron or somebody else from having to do it for individual sites. And so that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Alex. Jason?
I'm ready to vote on something. I think that personally there was a lack of any real facts in the subcommittee's findings. It was mostly feelings, and the fact that we've had hunting on conservation land for as long as we have, and there have been no incidences, and there's, Dave said one safety concern, maybe multiple, but very few. Certainly the time that I've been on the commission, I don't recall ever seeing a public comment or anything come in about safety and hunting. Again, we've seen way more about dogs. So I'm ready to make a vote on this now. I think that a lot of the stuff that was presented is anecdotal. That was presented by the subcommittee is anecdotal rather than factual. So I don't know. I don't know where everybody else stands, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to vote.
Thanks, Jason. I want to mention something though, which hasn't come up is what I don't think was well captured by the open space survey or has been discussed is the displacement of people from the trails during hunting or when they perceive to be not safe from hunting. And it is anecdotal because there hasn't been a focused survey for it. And I know of a lot of people who have anecdotally told me that they don't go on the trails or they get off the trails when they hear or see hunters. And they're not the same people that have responded to the open space survey. So one of our missions is to make the trails available for public use, the enjoyment of all, which means balancing different uses. So if there is a real ongoing displacement of people from the trails because they are afraid, that's something that we should know and consider. There is a lot of public use. There's more houses along trails. There's more dogs on the trails. There's just more of a lot of things. And the point of the subcommittee was to reassess based on current conditions rather than the conditions of 20 years ago. And maybe the assessment is no change is needed, but I still think that making sure some of those voices are heard, which I don't think they have adequately been, is important. And, you know, to your point, we have had people call in and discuss safety concerns about people hunting on conservation lands near their house. So there has been conversations about that. I think Bruce is next.
I'm disinclined to vote on anything tonight. I would like to keep the status quo until we do the several concrete research analysis things that were discussed near the end of the conversation.
Thanks, Bruce. Dave?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we'd be happy to do some of that research and, you know, for a future meeting, if that's the direction the commission wants to go. I would be remiss, and I think I have mentioned this, and I think I mentioned it to the subcommittee, and I don't have a date. To my knowledge, there's only been one serious hunting-related incident on conservation land, and that was actually at Amethyst Brook. I can get a date. I don't have it off the top of my head. Again, it predates me. It had to be in the 80s sometime, but that's the only one I know of. I was remiss in not mentioning that earlier, but that's the only one I know of. But I believe it was the 80s, and I'll try to get the date on that if folks want me to. So thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Can I just see a show of hands from commissioners who's ready to vote now? Okay, that's not enough. So we'll continue the conversation. I think we queued up some additional lines of investigations regarding looking across all of conservation lands, right? Am I characterizing that? And not basing the proposals on the status quos necessarily. And I would love to see some kind of more focused survey or outreach to get a better understanding of public sentiment and experiences. Rachel?
Yeah, I think if we're collecting more information, some other questions I have are, what does it look like on our lands if the 150-foot buffer is applied? Because as the state has laid it out for the roads, that's a linear feature. And that makes more sense to me than the 500-foot that was applied in the original document. I'd also like to see a chart of hunting implements and their effective range. I don't know. When I look at a list, I'm an uneducated commissioner. I don't know how far, you know, different tools and implements might have and how they fit within that. And so I'm seeing, for example, deer can be hunted with 3 different types of implements, and how effective are those ranges? Are any of those something that could be safely used to manage deer populations on conservation land without that conflict? The other question I have is, you know, the perception of safety in hunting. If there's a way to reach out to people that you know or hear, is it just what is the triggering moment for them? Is it the seeing of the weapon, or is it something else? So is it something where if the weapon was in a bag or, you know, hidden from view on the trail, people would feel safer that it was stowed away? if there's anything like that that could be done, or if the safety is more of an educational thing. I will say, when I first moved here, there was a hunter on the trail that I was on with my dog, and I was scared, and I reached out to the town because I was just not around hunters, and the town was really good and telling me about the buffers and things like that. And once I understood those rules, I felt safer on the trail. So I'm curious too about how much education and the visual nature of that encounter could be managed. I think that's it.
Thanks, Rachel. Andre?
Thanks, Michelle. My comment was going back to Jason's proposal to, or Jason saying that he's ready to vote. I think by not just by not voting, what we're doing is we're maintaining the status quo until we find out some more information. And at some point, we'll get a chance to vote, but I think, but getting more information and having a full discussion is a good idea. I'll leave it at that.
Dave?
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is just, I made note of some of the additional information, and I think what I heard from Michelle, one of your last comments was at least consideration of some sort of survey work. And so I noted that in my notes here, and I want to talk to Aaron and some other folks in the planning department. So let us think about that. But if that's something that the commission would like to see done to, because keep in mind, the open space and recreation plan had some other focus points, but if that's something that you'd like us to consider, we will. The other thing is, I just want to be realistic about time, both tonight, but also in the future, that, you know, it's Aaron and myself for the most part. So we will do the very best we can, but I think we need to pace ourselves in terms of when do we have another special meeting like this, in September or October, or when? So it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but we need to be a little realistic about staff time. I can tell you right now from my meetings with Aaron in the last week, the commission has a very full plate coming up for the next 45 to 60 days. We have a lot of applications and some pretty complex ones. So I'm just putting that out there. We have an obligation to applicants and the public to move those NOIs and RDAs forward. So this is in addition to all that work. So we just need to be realistic. Thanks.
Alex?
Yeah, one of my opening slides, which was slide 6, gave the current status, and the Concom hunting and fishing rule that's now in effect reads, hunting and fishing is permitted where not posted. Hunters and people fishing must be licensed and abide by all Massachusetts and federal fishing and hunting regulations. So for anybody who's wondering what the current status is, that's it. Hunting and fishing rule is now in effect. Hunting and fishing is permitted where not posted. We don't have any posted land. So that would raise the question about the 8 that are on the, or whatever the number is, that are on the website, where the town says that's where hunting is allowed and all others are prohibited. The current code declares where posted. So that's something for people to chew on.
Bruce?
I'd like to know whether it would be possible to keep this topic separate from everything else the subcommittee did. So that the things that have already been voted on can go to the hearing and get used.
I absolutely agree. So let's do that. And everything else that's been voted on can move into a public meeting, hopefully in the fall, depending on time constraints. And we'll keep this as a ongoing discussion until it's resolved. Okay, Andre.
Thank you again. I would be happy to meet with anyone who would like to, for example, have a demonstration of how far a bow goes, or how they operate, etc. I think that kind of thing would be educational and helpful. Alex is a shooter. He is a member of a local gun club, as I am, and I said he goes regularly. He and I could both go over there and meet with you folks if we want to talk firearms. But in my backyard, I have a little mini range where I shoot my bow. I own 8.5 acres. And I'd love to answer questions from anyone about hunting. For example, I could tell you, I could answer your questions, Rachel, offline if you'd like, on the distances, effective distances.
Cool.
So anyway, thanks, folks.
Yeah, we did look at effective distances at the subcommittee. Jason?
I want to make sure. So, Alex, back to what you said is that hunting is permitted except where posted. I think we need to make sure that the definition of posted is that publicly viewable, and does publicly viewable now include the internet, or is that literally at the land? It needs to be posted like on a tree, on a kiosk in the front that says no hunting allowed. You know,
Yeah,
that's
I
and this,
respond.
we don't have to answer it tonight, and we don't. But
I would
it's a
like to,
concern.
I'd like to comment if I could, just jump in. And I think it would be a good thing for Dave to get with his attorney and have a discussion about what it says on the website. All other areas are prohibited. What it says in our regulations, all except where posted, what posted means. And so I can come back with some clarity. I specifically put it in my presentation and brought it up again because of what it says and because it's in conflict or could be in conflict with what's on the website. And so needs to be some clarity there. I agree with you. And that needs legal review on what does that mean and what does the town set itself up for? As Andre said, well, where's the law enforcement? What's being enforced? So maybe Dave could come back with some clarity on that because none of us can do that.
Yep. My other comment is that can we get a list from everybody of like the specific information you would like to enable you to make a decision on this, so that we're not kicking this down the road even further each time.
I think that needs to be talked about right now, right here, and not lists like distributed to Erin or each other. That's a complicated open meeting law constraint. So I've
Either
asked
way.
several times and people have given feedback. Is there any other thing that people need to know? I mean, I've stated, I think some more public interest. I was a big fan of the 150 buffer, like Rachel mentioned, that wasn't supported in the subcommittee, but I wouldn't mind revisiting that so that we can at least show that we've addressed a public safety issue here and thought about it and deliberated on it and come to something where we've said we've assessed the public use, we've assessed how hunting has changed, how the use of the trails have changed, the population and the juxtaposition of people to the trails have changed, and we are confidently making this decision, balancing all the recreational uses and public safety in mind. Okay, I'd love to wrap this up soon. Andre?
I was going to comment on for Jason. So Jason, like Alex was saying, the state law says that hunting is open. Areas that are not posted open to hunting. That comes from the philosophy, from a certain philosophy of people coming from England, where essentially all of New England, if you don't want your land to be hunted, you have to post it. Everything else is open. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to recognize and adhere by the 500-foot buffer on homes and 150 on roads and the 150 on the rail trail. But it does mean that if one wants to keep hunting out, they need to either post it or intervene the people and tell them. I mean, the posting is what tells people that you can't hunt there. So that's something the town can do as we go along after, I think after we resolve this issue. As for what questions we have, I understand the sensitivity to sending emails and so on, but I don't think that sending an email with a few things that we're going to discuss in a meeting, in a public meeting, is any kind of a violation. I don't think that would complicate anything. We've been doing this by submitting comments to everything ever since I've been a commissioner. So I don't think this is that much different. If
Okay,
y'all
well, I'll just mention that after my conversations with the town today, I think that's,
you just interrupted me, I'm sorry. We'll take it. If folks want to talk about, give ideas now, I'm great, but I don't think that way. I can't just give you all my ideas right here. I've got to think about them and put them in writing. So just, I'd appreciate some.
okay, that's fair enough. But they should be directed to Aaron. And what I was going to say is that after conversations with the town, it would be inappropriate for everybody to passing along a list of questions to the commissioners per open meeting law, which is a discussion to be had at a different commissioner meeting. Okay, I don't know who is next. Jason?
Yeah, I just I really want to make it known, like I object to the term like, oh, we've considered public safety issues. Because right now there does not appear to be any public safety issue. You have perceived issues. You have people that have anecdotally said things, but as a commission, we have not seen anything submitted to the town, any reports, any police reports, any reports to Dave or to the town that states that there was an issue. So I do object to some of the language that's been used talking about this as a public safety issue. This is a perceived public safety issue, not a public safety issue. And there is just a lot of anecdotal language in here. And if we're going to do fact finding and collecting of facts, they need to actually be facts and not anecdotal. So I just want to state that and let that be known.
Okay, so let's call it perceived public safety, and I'm fine with that because the point is that people are feeling displaced from the trails, and that is feedback that I've gotten, that others have gotten, and we have gotten official complaints to the town. So I agree terminology is important, but part of this is, again, balancing the availability of the conservation lands for the public, and that is what we're trying to do here. Rachel?
Two additional thoughts. One, back to the posting. Just want to say I had a client who had 20 acres of land and was surprised by the state law, because there were people that had hunted historically on the property, and when the transfer of ownership happened, it's on the hunters. Hunters had the rights, and so the owners, it was an educational process for them to know that they had to post. And posting involves quite a bit of process. Every season you need to hang signs. Then you need to be able to see the next sign so that it's clear where the boundary is that you're demarcating as posting. For large areas of land, that can be a very labor intensive effort, that involves hanging signs about eye height on vertical structures. So that can be another burden to the town, to manage that posting for signs that need to be posted on the land to comply with state law. And the other question I had, is more of like a format procedural question as we go forward, collecting more information. Is it gonna be more informal discussion, or are there more documents that are gonna be written by the subcommittee? You know, how is this gonna be compiled? And who is doing that compilation is the question.
That's a good question. The subcommittee is no longer a thing, so it would be towards the town and whoever wants to volunteer to compile information. Alex?
Yeah, I am, I just want to reflect on, I didn't go through my resume. But I just want to say that I have taught hunter education for about 15 years. I have graduate degrees in wildlife science. I worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the regulatory field for 38 years. I am a wildlife biologist. And just for the record, I put that out there. I also want to say that I participate, and this is tangent a bit, but it is still germane. I participate in Revolutionary War reenacting. That involves carrying muskets, black powder in a public park, in a national park. I experienced the rigor of safety that the park requires when black powder is being used in and around the public. We have to line up and have our muskets inspected. It's a whole process. And I every year and every time I'm in the park with a musket, I experience the requirements that the National Park Service implements. They've never had an accident, and they've never had an accident because they're careful. So is that a perception of safety? No, it's a precaution of safety. And I experience that a lot. And so when I come to this issue, it's not perception, and I kind of take offense to that, because my experience is in teaching hunter ed, that's all about safety. It's also about attitude and a bunch of other things. But safety is good government. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, very.
Oh, excuse me. I'd like to sorry, Dave. I'd like to set a date for our next meeting very soon and adjourn. Sorry, Dave.
No problem, Alex. Michelle, I just want to mention, I would prefer that if commission members had questions or follow-up, that they email me and not Erin. Erin's plate is very full with all the, important things she does for applicants and with upcoming applications and process. So on the hunting issue, if you have follow-ups to this, give me a call or shoot me an email.
Thanks, Dave. Andre?
I think it's really important for all of us, while we're talking about folks who are afraid or who have been displaced by hunters, is the proposal to displace all the hunters. You're looking to displace a whole lot of people as well by saying they can't hunt. So let's have a little bit of equity here between.
Okay, but there's 5 different alternatives and only one of them is saying you can't hunt. So
But when you look at the document that has been produced, and the fact that the subcommittee started with the proposal to shut down hunting, and the wording of the document that the subcommittee produced, it's all coming from the point of view of the non-hunting users. I mean, that's all that you can see in that document. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking all of us, to consider everybody. That when you're talking about some folks possibly being displaced or anecdotally being displaced, or who have told you about that, then you also need to think that you're turning your back, or we are turning our backs, the town, on a whole bunch of other people who hunt here and use the trails year round. And they, frankly, hunting only takes place for them in general between October and December. And deer hunting with a shotgun is 2 weeks a year, 2 weeks. Anyway, I'm done.
Yes, Alex's Gantt chart was useful in understanding the full range of different hunting for species across the year, which, when we narrow it down to deer, it's shorter, but otherwise there could be hunting all year round, right?
Yeah, but as a follow-up, almost nobody goes out and hunts for chipmunks and other stuff like that. The real hunting season, when people actually go out there to get game that they're going to put in their fridge and all that stuff, or freezer, that's October, mid-October.
Yeah.
Bruce,
I move we adjourn.
Rachel, did you want to chime in first?
Yeah, I'm sorry to continue the conversation. I just want to, the reason why I asked about the documentation and how we're gonna manage that going forward, we have a responsibility as a commission to really try to represent the facts in a scientific manner. I know we've collected a lot of really good information, and it sounds like we're gonna get some really good information going forward. But I am concerned about any document going forward that uses inflammatory adjectives or adverbs that might, that someone from one side or the other might perceive as disenfranchisement. And so I just would like to advocate for the next version of anything that is on this topic sticks to the facts and uses really clear language. And it's okay to have differing viewpoints. It's okay to have, different documentation, but as simple as the language can be without jumping to a conclusion or saying something's not worth pursuing, or that kind of language, I think, distracts from the content of looking clearly at the argument. And so that's something that I'm looking for as a commissioner, is to see pro hunting or the different sides of the argument so clearly. And I get it's harder to see that with sort of that personal language that's been applied. So.
Thank you, Rachel.
I'll second
Motion on the
motion.
Bruce on the motion, Jason on the second for adjournment. Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex.
I'm disappointed that we're voting before we have a date for our next meeting.
Yeah, I realized that I did that. Well, we can,
Let's address this some other time.
yeah, I think we need to maybe we could add this to an agenda, because I don't know what the outlook is for the next 60 days, as Dave said. So unless Dave or Aaron can offer a date, and I think we might have to do another round of when are you available for a special meeting. So I don't think we can handle that right now. So
Well, I can tell you right now that I'm not available from most of August. I think I'm free after the 25th. I'm gone most of October. And then there's an election. And if this is going to take a year, if we're going to do surveys to find out about displaced people and how they feel, we'll have new commissioners and we'll leave commissioners. So it appears that there's going to be no quick end to this. And so we need to be mindful of people's time. Today, I have 7.5 hours on this topic. And that's a big chunk of time.
Yeah, I'm not sure really how to nail down a date right now, but I guess would Aaron, Dave, would you mind maybe tomorrow or this week circulating some potential polls or something, keeping in mind that we want to handle this sooner rather than later? Okay, thank you. All right, Alex, so I think you haven't
I'm an
voted on
aye.
the
I'm an aye.
All right. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.